All right, welcome back to another edition of We Rise Fighting Labor podcast. We bring you today's labor news, history, and analysis from the U.S. and around the world. This is a podcast you listen to with your fellow workers organizing on the shop floor. This is a podcast you listen to before walking into your union meeting. As always, I'm Rico Rutia, here with my co-host Brian Pfeiffer. This week, we bring you news about the Mercury Cafe in Denver, the Graduate Employees Organization strike and contract in Michigan, Trader Joe's United, the Teamsters Labor Day events in Wisconsin, the potential United Autoworkers strike, OPEIU, and the Anderson Economic Group. I'm particularly excited to talk about the Anderson Economic Group. That's the group that comes out with those goofy, a strike will cost the economy $75 bazillion a day numbers, which the corporate media then prints, takes off with, and uses to fearmonger. So I'm excited to talk about that. And excited to talk about everything in today's show. But first, as always, some jams. And here's Brian. He's going to introduce today's music.
All right. Hello again, We Rise Fighting listeners. In the recent days and weeks here, we have seen many self-defense actions by Black workers in Alabama and other locations taking place across the United States. And just recently in Philadelphia, anti-racist and anti-fascist ran the Proud Boys out of town, engaging in some self-defense while doing that. So today, in celebration of anti-fascism and fighting back against racist, we honor our Italian partisans by a strong rendition here of Bella Ciao, which is a well-known anti-fascist song all over the world. At We Rise Fighting, we, of course, defend voting rights, but we know that the only way to completely eradicate fascist and racist is to engage in what the Italian partisans did against Mussolini and his forces, which were, of course, backed up by the United States, is to engage in direct action and crush them, the fascists, that is, and the racists. So in celebration of our Italian partisans historically and those fighting back against these types of elements, in the style of the Proud Boys, here is Bella Ciao.
Stamattina mi sono alzato. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Stamattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invaso. Oh partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. E se io muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire e seppellire lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fior. Tutte le genti che passeranno, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E le genti che passeranno ti diranno che bel fior. E questo è il fiore del partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. Questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. Questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà.
Right on. Welcome back, everyone. A couple of bits of news on my plate right here. The first one is congratulations to workers at the Mercury Cafe in Denver. They voted in a union this week, so that's a big deal. If you would like more information on that, you can get more information on Instagram. Their Instagram is Mercury Cafe Union. And what they said was this: big announcement, we won our union election. We are so grateful for all of the support we've received during this process, and we are so excited to be a part of CWA Local 7777, Quad 7. We are Grateful and celebrating this win. The struggle for justice continues at the Merc. So stay tuned for how you can support us to help save the Mercury Cafe and create dignified working conditions. So hats off to the Mercury Cafe. I will be offering whatever updates they offer, and just congratulations to them, solidarity and love to them. Also here on the news briefs is GEO. So GEO, the Graduate Employees Organization, and this one specifically in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or I should just say Michigan, actually, because they're across a few campuses. But GEO Local 3550 ratified their contract. For our regular listeners, y'all know that they had been on strike for several months. So this is good news over here. And this is what they posted on their Instagram. Grad workers vote to unify U of M's offer, ending longest strike in GEO history. This guarantees a 20 to 80% raise for incoming grad workers and the living wage for most PhDs, with wins across a host of issues from trans and parental care to abolition and harassment protections. We fought tooth and nail over 10 months of bargaining and 5 months of strike action, forcing U of M to grant the largest salary increase in GEO history. However, U of M refused to ensure pay parity across all three campuses. The battle is over, but the fight goes on. So that's what's up. Congratulations to GEO. Brian and I did check out the contract real quick. And Brian, what were your thoughts? There was stuff there that I had never seen before.
Yeah, Rick, there looked to be some trend-setting language in terms of LGBTQ provisions that were positive for the LGBTQ community, very important advances, as well as a variety of other language for the workers in that bargaining unit. So we're excited to see that, take a look and dig deeper into the contract. And we also were honored to have one of the leaders that was on the bargaining committee interviewed here at We Rise Fighting in a previous episode. So listeners can check that out as well.
Yeah, I am gonna encourage folks to check it out. If you're on Instagram, GEO's Instagram account is GEO, the letters GEO _3550. And I am gonna encourage people to look at this if this is of interest to you, because some of the language in that contract, I've never seen language like that. Again, as Brian just mentioned, with regards to the rights of trans workers, the rights of LGBTQIA plus workers. So yeah, please check it out and just know that these victories happen through struggle. We've been covering this. GEO has been out on the streets. GEO has been very vocal and principled. That's how you win. So congratulations to GEO. Hats off to GEO. Thank you for showing us how to do some shit, how to throw down. So that's what's up. Congratulations to them. Up next, we got Brian here talking about Trader Joe's Union. What's going on over there?
All right, thanks, Rick. Well, our fellow workers at Trader Joe's United Union issued an email on August 26th, yesterday, and they announced that the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, which is the jurisdiction, of course, is the private sector in the United States, just issued new regulations around union busting. Quote from the email is that the new rule states that if bosses commit unfair labor practices in the run-up to a union election, then the election will be canceled and the NLRB will order the employer to immediately recognize and bargain with the union. Basically, the punishment for union busting is the workers automatically get to form a union, according to Trader Joe's United. And when they tried to organize a store in Manhattan, their election ended in a 76-76 tie, meaning that the election failed, but management committed multiple unfair labor practices on the way to that tie, meaning that under the new rules, that would be a union store. So there's a lot to this. We need to study this more, and that can be done at traderjoesunited.org, and you can sign up for their emails there. They send them out periodically, and also at their Facebook page and other social media. Also, in solidarity that we're seeing growing here across the country, that in the time that I've been active in unions and organizing, I have rarely seen the type of solidarity organizing that's taken place across the country with fellow union members reaching out to others on a higher scale. It's always been there, but it seems to be more developed and growing. And one of the examples of this is the Trader Joe's United, in another email on August 27th, today, expressed major solidarity with the UAW. And this is exactly what we need. Here's what they said in their email. Quote, the UAW is fighting for a lot of the same things we're fighting for with Trader Joe's: fair wages, medical benefits, paid time off, retirement benefits, and more. UAW contracts typically set the standard for manufacturing wages and benefits for workers nationwide, whether they're in the union or not. Negotiating a new fair contract means better working conditions for all workers. And Trader Joe's United ends their email by saying, this is the future of the labor movement, whether it's us at Trader Joe's United, the Amazon Labor Union, the Teamsters Union, or SAG-AFTRA, and the WGA, Writers Guild. A win for one is a win for all in the fight for labor rights. All right, Rick, with that, we're getting somewhere. What do you think about that?
No, you're right. I haven't seen much of that myself. I'm really excited about that. These little shout outs, I have one of my own coming up too. There's going to be a shout out from the UAW to the Teamsters. But first, the Teamsters themselves. So keeping everyone current on what's been going on with Teamster UPS negotiations, the Teamsters have ratified a contract. They've ratified a 5-year national agreement. And so I went to the Teamsters website, checked out their news releases, and this is the one that speaks to this. The headline reads as follows: 5-year national agreement passes overwhelmingly, one supplement to be renegotiated. And the text of the press release reads as follows. And please understand, this is neither an endorsement nor a critique. This is just what the press release says. Today, Teamsters voted by an overwhelming 86.3% to ratify the most historic collective bargaining agreement in the history of UPS. The 5-year contract protects and rewards more than 340,000 UPS Teamsters worldwide, raising wages for full and part-time workers, creating more full-time jobs, and securing important workplace protections, including air conditioning. The agreement passed by the highest vote for a contract in the history of the Teamsters at UPS. This is a quote from Sean O'Brien, the president of the Teamsters. Quote, our members just ratified the most lucrative agreement the Teamsters have ever negotiated at UPS. This contract will improve the lives of hundreds of thousands of workers, said Teamster General President Sean O'Brien. Quote, Teamsters have set a new standard and raised the bar for pay, benefits, and working conditions in the package delivery industry. This is a template for how workers should be paid and protected nationwide, and non-union companies like Amazon better pay attention. I love that he included that, actually. Another quote, this one is from Teamsters General Secretary Treasurer Fred Zuckerman. The quote goes as follows. This is the richest national contract I've seen in more than 40 years of representing Teamsters at UPS. There are more gains in this contract than in any other UPS agreement, and with no give-backs to the company. But the hard work doesn't end here. We will continue to fight like hell to enforce the contract and make sure UPS lives up to every word of it over the next 5 years. And just wanted to share some highlights. There were a lot of highlights offered in the press release, so this may be like half of them. But here we go. So, and again, just like I mentioned with the geo struggle, this was done through struggle. This was done through practice picket lines. This was done through communication amongst the rank and file. This was done through communication online. These gains were made through struggle. I mean, Teamsters prepared for this and talked about this and discussed this and organized for this. Just wanted to mention that real quick before reading this list, because it's a cool list. So the first bullet point as far as gains: historic wage increases. Existing full and part-time UPS Teamsters will get $2.75 more per hour in 2023. Over the length of the contract, wage increases will total $7.50 per hour. General wage increases for part-time workers will be double the amount obtained in the previous UPS contract, and existing part-time workers will receive a 48% average total wage increase over the next 5 years. Wage increases for full-timers will keep UPS Teamsters the highest paid delivery drivers in the nation, improving their average top rate to $49 per hour. New part-time hires at UPS will start at $21 per hour and advance to $23 per hour. All UPS Teamster drivers classified as 22.4S will be reclassified immediately to regular package car drivers and placed into seniority, ending the unfair 2-tier wage system at UPS. All UPS Teamsters will receive Martin Luther King Day as a full holiday for the first time. no more forced overtime on Teamster drivers' days off, the creation of 7,500 new full-time Teamster jobs at UPS, and finally, the final highlight I took was more than 60 total changes and improvements to the National Master Agreement, more than any other time in Teamsters history, and 0 concessions from the rank and file. So that's read directly from the press release. Those numbers are impressive as far as the majority that ratified it and the number of Teamster members who voted for it. So yes, congratulations to the Teamsters. This was done through struggle. Just a reminder to our listeners that, when you hear about good health benefits and good pay for union workers, it's done through this. It's done through everything that we've been covering for several months about the Teamsters now. It's done through practice picket lines. It's done through action. It's done through democratic discussion. It's done through organizing the rank and file. So kudos to them. We will keep you posted if there is more news coming from the Teamsters and their contract. But looks like they have their site on Amazon now, which I hope really is the case. So also with Teamsters news, though, Brian, you have some news from Local 662. What's going on over there?
Yeah, Rick, thanks. We have our fellow workers still on strike at Leinenkugels, Molson Coors, and New Dairy Milk Select. The Molson Coors location is in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and the New Dairy Milk Select is in De Pere, Wisconsin. And workers there make sour cream for Taco Bell primarily is their primary customer. There's about 40 workers at both of these locations. Both of the locals have been on strike now, the members for over 2 months. It's a long time, almost all summer and very hot weather and rain and all kinds of other weather conditions. They've had a lot of solidarity, but need a lot more. And hopefully that now that the UPS contract campaign is over and the contract is ratified, the UPS Teamsters can go to these picket lines even more than they already have. There has been a lot of solidarity already, but these workers have been out there for over 2 months and now heading into fall. So they could use support on the picket lines, which are up from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. Supporters can also contribute checks, money orders, cashier checks, and gift cards to the Solidarity Strike Fund. And also, as we know, school is starting, and many of these workers on strike, Teamsters 662 members on strike, have children, and school is starting, so they could definitely use the checks, money orders, cashier checks, and gift cards to the Solidarity Strike Fund. And if you are near there's a Union Hall in Green Bay, Wisconsin 662, dropping off kids materials for school would be greatly appreciated. And the website, teamsters662.com, and also their Facebook page. And as we do every week on the show, we send our fellow workers there on the picket lines every day, solidarity. And we're going to continue to do everything we can here at New Rise Fighting to help you win that strike, brothers and sisters. All right, Rick, what do you got next?
All right, next we're going to talk about the United Autoworkers because their contract is coming up as far as expiring. And so just wanted to see what was in the news as far as that. And I came across this Reuters article. The headline reads as follows: UAW votes overwhelmingly to authorize strike at Detroit 3 automakers. And the body reads as follows: the United Autoworkers, UAW union, on Friday said members voted overwhelmingly in favor of authorizing a strike at the Detroit 3 automakers if agreement is not reached before the current 4-year contract expires on September 14th. So just a little over 2 weeks away. The authorization was approved by 97% of voting members at General Motors, Ford Motor, and Stellantis, said UAW President Shawn Fain, who leads the union that represents about 150,000 workers. Fain reiterated that the union did not plan to extend the deadline to get a new labor contract. And this is a quote from Fain: "The deadline is September 14th. We have a lot of options that we are looking at, but extension on the contract is not one of them." Whoa, okay, I'm into this. Separately, the article continues, President Joe Biden, who met with Fain last month, told reporters in Nevada he is concerned about a potential UAW strike. Man, no shit, man. Tell me about it, Biden. And this is a quote from Biden. "I think that there should be a circumstance where jobs that are being displaced are replaced with new jobs for UAW members, and the salaries should be commensurate." And the article goes on. some senators want national UAW agreements to cover jobs at battery joint ventures that currently pay less. Now, those couple of things strike me. I'm just going to stop there for just a second and just highlight, I think this speaks to what's lacking in the media when you have so few labor reporters. Who cares what some senators want for the UAW contracts? What's important is what the members want, and also, uh, Biden, I mean, showing concern with this. He's the one who shut down the railway strike. Just wanted to keep that out there. Just wanted to keep it fresh in people's heads. Serve as your little history book here. All right, history from just several months ago, or almost a year ago now. Okay, so anyway, the contract continues. Fain said workers had made numerous concessions over the last 2 decades, including giving up wage hikes, defined benefit pensions, and post-retirement health care benefits. Yeah, Brian, I won't lie to you. I'm not trying to take a jab. No, whatever the UAW can win in this struggle right now, kudos to them. I moved to Detroit in the year 2000, and I was close with the people at Labor Notes. Labor Notes magazine, which, as the name suggests, covers all things labor and unions and struggles, stuff like that. And so I was close with Labor Notes folks, and that's where I learned the word concession was under the context of the UAW. That's all they've been doing is giving concessions. So if at this point in 2023 they want to get back some of those concessions and then some, I'm all for it. I think we should all be for it. I support you. We support you, UAW.
That's right.
And a quote continues from Fain. We're fed up, Fain said, listing a series of demands. We've sat back for decades while these companies continue to just take and take and take from us. Fain has outlined an ambitious set of demands, including wage hikes of 46%, to end the tiered wage system that pays new hires less than veterans, reinstating cost of living adjustment, and restoring defined benefit pension plans for new hires that the auto workers ended in 2017. At Stellantis, just 30% of hourly U.S. workers are eligible for defined benefit pensions. Fain said he expected the Detroit Three to come to the bargaining table next week with counter proposals to the UAW demands. He said talks were, quote, still going slow, unquote, after opening in July. Analysts estimate a more than 50% chance of a strike. Analysts. I think that's Anderson Economic Group, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But anyway, that's what the article read. And it goes on just a little further. It is not clear how long it would take a strike to significantly reduce Detroit 3 inventories. Through July, Stellantis, US Ram, Jeep, Chrysler, and Dodge each had more than 100 days inventory, but many specific popular models have less. The vote does not guarantee a strike to be called, only that a union has a right to call a strike if there's no agreement by September 14th. GM, Ford, and Stellantis have said that they want to reach a deal that is fair to workers, but also gives the companies flexibility as the industry shifts to electric models that have fewer parts and require less labor. And finally, in closing, Ford shares were up 1%, while General Motors were unchanged in afternoon trade. All right.
Yeah, Rick. So, hey, check it out. So this is, I think we've talked about this many, many times on the show, but I just want to, I think it goes to the heart of our analysis here at We Rise Fighting, that our interests, the workers, we have no interest in common with the bosses and the workers. And we've ended up in these concessionary situations because there was confusion about that. Can you expand on that a bit?
As far as
we, the workers or unions, do not have any interest the same as the bosses.
Everything, right? Just all those states in the Midwest turning from the industrial belt to the Rust Belt. Like everything that happened in between, the neoliberal economics, the globalization, the eliminating of borders for the sake of not having to pay import tariffs, but you don't eliminate the borders for the workers. So that workers in, say, Mexico, who work and do similar work or had work outsourced to them from Detroit can earn similar wages. because that's how capitalism functions, right? It's always on a quest to find cheaper and cheaper labor and to find more and more exploitable land. So yeah, no, we have no interest and we have nothing in common with the shareholders of GM, Ford, Stellantis. Their interest is accumulating incomprehensible wealth, while the interest of UAW members are maintaining their health care so they stay alive, getting a pay increase so that they're not struggling as hard. So yeah, no, our interests have nothing to do with theirs. And I can understand how some of these struggles led to concession and how some fear in the midst of globalization led to concessions. But really, no, it's time to take all that stuff back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
So that's what's up. I also went to the UAW's website to see if they had any announcement, any new update, or anything like that. And they actually did have a press release, a recent press release. And the headline in that one reads as follows: As grassroots actions intensify in support of strong Big Three contract, UAW President Fain calls on members to organize practice pickets and other actions. And the body reads as follows: The campaign for a strong contract at the Big Three is taking off. UAW members and allies have started spontaneously organizing grassroots actions around the country, and UAW President Shawn Fain is strongly encouraging them. Today, while in Louisville, Kentucky, to join two practice pickets, he sent an email to tens of thousands of union activists encouraging them to keep intensifying grassroots organizing. Here is the text of the letter, along with materials he circulated to use in their actions. And this is from President Fain. UAW family, I'm writing to you from Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm joining UAW Local's 862 members at two practice pickets. The Big Three have made massive profits for more than a decade. While the CEOs got rich, UAW members got left behind. Our message to the Big Three is simple. Record profits mean record contracts. Let's show the company what we mean business by organizing actions across the country. One of our favorites, the practice pickets. For decades, unions across the country have used this tactic because it's simple, fun, and sends a clear message to the boss. And the second one is what I had previously mentioned. Shout out to the Teamsters. They're in this too. This is what he says. The Teamsters were the most recent union to use practice pickets to win a strong contract. Now it's our turn. The press release continues. Don't know where to start? I've attached a story written by a rank and file Teamster explaining how they organized their own actions. I've also included a do's and don'ts guideline for practice pickets, as well as PDFs so you can print your own signs. And below that is made available about half a dozen picket signs and flyers and the link to the Teamsters. And finally, the press release ends with this. The companies know what our priorities are. If the Big Three refuse to give us the contract we deserve, then they're the ones who are choosing to strike. I've told the companies repeatedly that September 14th is a deadline, not a reference point. Let's show them that we are united and ready to back up those words with collective action. In solidarity, Shawn Fain. Good stuff.
This is good stuff. Yeah, I mean, many times you'll find, emails that are a couple sentences from some union leader, and it'll be good, but the actual information in here, the Teamsters solidarity, the actual practical application of putting PDFs in here, where their union members' dues are going to actual practical, tactical actions. Very important information here. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, and the nod to the Teamsters, I think that was also really important. Like you had just mentioned, we're seeing more of that, and man, this is inspiring. This is a special time in labor. The US has not seen this much labor activity in a long time, at least 40 years, ever since PATCO, ever since the PATCO strike during the Reagan administration. So we're excited to be a part of this and covering it here for you. Up next, Brian, you got news from the march in in Milwaukee. What's going on? What happened there?
Hi, Rick. Thanks. Would just like to add also a great report on the UAW and adding the Teamsters in there, that there are some who, and we've talked about this before on the show, who like to, and we do that here too, but our analysis is a critical analysis. But these workers are in motion. There's a union president that is pushing, and we know there are challenges. There's a lot of objective circumstances happening. But I believe, you agree, Rick. And if you don't, please let me know. But I think that the fact that workers are in motion and their union president is pushing them and supporting them and providing resources to do that and speaking at events instead of just sitting in an office somewhere sending out emails, but also getting out there and getting dirty and getting struggling with the bosses and speaking in places and getting to the practice picket lines, just like the Teamsters did. And we know there's challenges, a variety of different political challenges internally, et cetera. But it's quite a time to be in motion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
That stuff is really important. When I lived in Detroit, I worked at UPS. I was a Teamster, and I was there when Tom Leadham, the reform candidate endorsed by Teamsters for a Democratic Union. I was there when Tom Leadham came to the facility I worked at. I shook his hand. I talked to him. I still haven't forgotten. That was 23 years ago. That stuff is important. I had a conversation with him. I asked him questions. I respect that he got out there and was ready for anything, because I'm sure some workers gave him heat, so I appreciate that. Yeah, that stuff is important. And also, to have these union leaders encouraging collective action and shouting out to each other's struggles. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's a game changer in a lot of places.
Yep.
And to see low-wage workers like the Trader Joe's Union sending out shout-outs to the UAW and the Teamsters, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So similar to this, we marched and we participated. We Rise Fighting in the march in Milwaukee on August 23rd against the RNC, the Republican National Convention, had a so-called presidential debate with the candidates. There's 8 candidates presently. The members of SEIU, Service Employees International Union, mobilized its members in Wisconsin, regionally and nationally, with members and leaders of Fight for 15, Starbucks Workers United, and other groups joining in the protest. The Migrant Workers' Rights Organization, Voces de la Frontera, joined the SEIU and also the coalition to march on the RNC for a rally in March later that evening, August 23rd. And we note here at We Rise Fighting that these are not just, of course, capitalist political servants. We've talked about this many times on the show, and we continue to, that they are essentially, the servants of the rich, of Wall Street, of the war machine, the endless U.S. war machine. But these particular candidates are a special, horrific, monstrous breed. All of the RNC presidential candidates are responsible for innumerable crimes against humanity, including union busting, racist and bigoted attacks, and many war crimes. Nikki Haley, a U.S. ambassador, supporting many U.S. war crimes. She was a former governor of South Carolina and appointed by Trump to be an ambassador for the U.S. And all of the other candidates have been groomed by many right-wing organizations, with most being funded by the billion-dollar Milwaukee-based Bradley Foundation, which is literally blocks from the Fiserv Forum where we protested on August 23rd. The Bradley Foundation has used Milwaukee and the entire state of Wisconsin as a laboratory in recent decades for monstrous austerity, including the implementation of charter schools and school vouchers, welfare reform, the shredding of many safety and other regulations, union busting, and more. And you and I, Rick, have talked about this many times, that we need to confront these individuals. Every single one of these presidential candidates has blood dripping from their hands.
Yeah.
They are responsible for people sitting at their homes wondering how they're going to take care of their elders because they were governor of a state that did not expand the federal monies for Medicare and Medicaid. They've busted unions. They have engaged in outrageous racist and anti-LGBTQ and anti-women attacks. So many crimes that is affecting millions of people. So much stress, so much horrific things that they have done to human beings and to our fellow workers. And we will not just allow them to come to Milwaukee and have cheesecake and champagne and laugh and have a good time without being confronted. And that's what these marches were about. There's no way in hell are you going to come to a state like Wisconsin, and they have done so many crimes against the workers and oppressed people in this state of Wisconsin that I'm in right now. And we will be there to confront them. And we were last Wednesday, and there will be a series of actions by union and community members throughout the entire course of the next year. Many groups plan on confronting these criminals wherever they might go across the entire country, but especially when they come to Wisconsin. And by the way, many of the right-wing organizations that are behind them, directly or indirectly, such as the Moms for Liberty, which some have dubbed them the Moms for Bigotry, were all over Wisconsin this summer trying to recruit. Now, the Moms for Liberty are funded by the Bradley Foundation and other right-wing think tanks, and they are trying to confront libraries, demand books are taken out of libraries, trying to take over school boards, and in some cases have. And these are the cadre of the right. These are not just your typical run-of-the-mill racists. These are actually cadres being formed by the right wing and being developed and given money and resources. And we have a good action to illustrate how to respond to these people. The Milwaukee Teachers Education Association found out that the Moms for Liberty, or the Moms for Bigotry, were going to try to have events at the Fister Hotel and the St. Kate Hotel in Milwaukee. And they went there and they leafleted and they had phone calls against the hotels, and they demanded that these semi-fascist, racist organizations should not be having meetings at all in any hotel, in any space in Milwaukee, because they're the enemy of workers and the people. And they won. I mean, MTEA was able to get them to stop having meetings in a variety of different locations. But this is what we described later in our Bello Chow song and the self-defense that's happening in this country from Black workers in Alabama, that voting is important. We defend the right to vote, but we have to get out there and engage in direct action against these fascists who want to take over everything that we have won, who want to shred our safety nets, who want to bust our unions. And there's no way in hell we're going to stand for this. Furthermore, the Young Americans for Freedom, which former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is now the president of, making $800,000 a year after he has just destroyed and has blood dripping from his hands as well in Wisconsin. The Young Americans for Freedom had a quote-unquote block party outside of the RNC on August 23rd. And the organization Wisconsin Bailout People Movement put out a FAQ, a fact sheet on who the Young Americans for Freedom are. And they are, again, they go way back to a lot of Southern bases, reactionary Southern politicians going back, opposing civil rights in the 1950s, to opposing unions. And this organization in particular goes on college campuses. They hail Ronald Reagan and the so-called free market capitalism with the gloves off. And they co-sponsored the RNC on August 23rd debate. So they as well will continue to be protested in all of these different kinds of organizations over the course of the next year. And then July 15th to 18th, 2024, there will be mass protest in Milwaukee as the RNC has their conventions, and the DNC will take place in Chicago in August of 2024. And the Coalition of March on the RNC and many other organizations, many unions are going to be having actions and confronting these horrific presidential candidates, as well as anybody connected to the RNC. We are not going to live in their vision of the world. We are going to build a people's world, and we'll be on the streets to make sure that happens. All right, Rick.
Anytime we talk about stuff like this, it does remind me of Utah Phillips, the folk singer, and his quote, "The world isn't dying. The earth isn't dying. It's being killed. And those who are killing it have names and addresses," and they really do. So I'm glad people are getting on the convention and protesting that. But even outside of that, as you've mentioned on the show too, Brian, these folks, they have business interests. They have businesses and things that they own that, through direct action, we can make either expensive or not profitable or whatever, stop production, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think it's also on us to connect those dots and make that sort of thing happen. So We hope to bring you information on how to do more of that here on We Rise Fighting. We've already done that before as far as some research tips, but yeah, just right off the fly, if you want to connect the dots between a politician and a corporation, or the PAC of a corporation, the Political Action Committee of a corporation, you find that in the Federal Elections Commission website. And there's a variety of ways to search for that type of information, to connect those dots between politicians and campaign contributions, stuff like that, and corporations. There's a variety of ways to search for information. So I'll just leave it at that for now. But yeah, all that information is out there, and we need to take note of it and apply it. We need to make just existing expensive for these people, man. These people need to suffer. They've made so many people suffer just needlessly. You need people who just need healthcare, people who just need to make money to pay rent and live and be cool, man. Just making life miserable for everyone. Fucking warmongers.
Yeah. And Rick, I'd like to add too, your great research to let our listeners know that if there is a right-wing organization that's a 501c3, that 990 forms can be accessed by the public at any time, so you can find out who they fund and where they fund. So, for example, listeners can go to the Bradley Foundation website, and they have to, by law, list their funding sources and who they fund, and those reports are available on their website.
Yep,
and the list of their presidents, their board of directors, all the right-wing organizations that they fund. And many of these people own many businesses, as you mentioned, Rick. And I don't know about you, but you've been to Milwaukee. It gets windy in Milwaukee, doesn't it, Rick?
It does. Very windy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, all this stuff it's out there. It's public information. It also gets me back to another conversation that we had on this show. There's no need for conspiracy theories. This information is out there. They publish it. It's public information. We can connect these dots ourselves. And the information that's out there is already damning enough. So, yeah, thank you for, sharing all of that, Brian. Now, as far as information, so $2 billion per day. Let me start there. Again, if you're a regular listener, you already know what I'm talking about. If you're not a regular listener, $2 billion a day. I'm going to go to my grave saying $2 billion a day because it just made me so bonkers in the mind last year. So $2 billion a day is what all the major corporate news media outlets were saying that a railway strike was going to, quote unquote, cost the economy. So a railway strike was going to cost the economy $2 billion a day. But from covering the strike and covering the developments of the strike, I took a lot of curiosity into who produces those numbers that say a strike will cost the economy $2 billion a day, a living wage increase will cost the economy $10 billion a day, and all the mom and pop shops will be wiped out. Like, who produces this information? And so I went down this research rabbit hole, and at least for the $2 billion a day figure, it was Anderson Economic Group. And it's also Anderson Economic Group chiming in on the auto workers strike. And it was also Anderson Economic Group chiming in on the Teamsters UPS struggle. So they're all over the place, and I've talked about them on here, including our very, very previous show from last week, talked about them there at length. So if you need more information, you can dig in and tune into that. But this week, I found an article, which I was telling Brian before we jumped on the show, which felt so good to me on two fronts. One, in that another person out there took interest in Anderson Economic Group and started digging into them. So it felt good. I felt affirmed, or whatever the word may be, that someone else is watching this sort of thing. So it felt good to see that. The second feeling is that I just felt cool that we have a podcast here that brought you this information before anyone else. So Anderson Economic Group came up in the news media, came up in this article. The article is titled The Conflicted Analysis of What an Auto Workers Strike Would, quote unquote, cost. And it's printed in prospect.org, which I'm not familiar with, so I can't speak to the media, to that particular website or anything like that. but I did read the article, and the article was sound enough, and that's why I am sharing on here. So this is the article, and this is how it reads. This article is a joint publication of the American Prospect and Workday magazine, a nonprofit newsroom devoted to holding the powerful accountable through the perspective of workers. And the body reads as follows. As 150,000 members of the United Autoworkers gear up for a possible strike against the big three, Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors, we are seeing the reemergence of a well-known media trope, fear-mongering about how collective work stoppage could, quote-unquote, hurt the economy. This slant is common from the media buildup to the potential rail strike to the potential UPS strike, as I just mentioned. This time, media outlets are throwing around a scary-sounding number, $5 billion. And a quote, auto workers walkout could cost $5 billion in losses to economy, study predicts, unquote, states an August 17 headline from Forbes. Quote, looming auto worker strike could cost $5 billion in just 10 days, New York analysis says, unquote. That's one I shared last week. Warns against August 17th headline from CNBC. This $5 billion figure was repeated in Fox Business, Reuters, and numerous other outlets. Without context, this dollar amount gives the impression that workers using their labor power to improve their lot is harmful to society and directs the conversation away from what these workers are owed for the primary role in creating the economic value of producing vehicles. But further scrutiny is warranted of the organization that came up with the $5 billion figure. Thank you. The study was conducted by the Anderson Economic Group, an economic consultancy firm. As a Reuters article states, quote, the Anderson Economic Group, based in East Lansing, Michigan, on Thursday released an estimate that a 10-day UAW strike that shuts down the Detroit 3 automakers could cost the manufacturers, workers, suppliers, and dealers more than $5 billion. Anderson Economic Group released a summary of its finding, which states that the losses refer to, quote, potential losses to UAW workers, the manufacturers, and to the auto industry more broadly if these negotiations are not successful before the current contract expires in September, unquote. The losses also assume a strike in all three automakers simultaneously, which Anderson Economic Group's CEO said was unlikely in a separate media briefing. But what none of the above outlets disclose is, oh, I love this part. But what none of the above outlets disclose is that Ford and General Motors, two of the companies involved in negotiations with workers on a new contract, are listed as business clients of Anderson Economic Group. Hello! Jesus, these fucking scoundrels. The consultancy group also lists as clients, quote, auto dealers representing Audi, BMW, Buick, Cadillac, Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Ferrari, Fiat, Ford, Genesis, GMC, Harley-Davidson, Honda, Hyundai, Jeep, Kia, Lamborghini, Lexus, Lincoln, Lotus, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz, Mini, Nissan, Porsche, Ram, Subaru, Suzuki, Toyota, Volkswagen, and Volvo brands. These not only include Ford and GM models, but brands in the Stellantis family, so Chrysler, Fiat, Jeep. This is a direct conflict of interest that should be disclosed by media outlets, is what I agree with, and that's exactly what the article just said. I fully agree with that. Asked whether Ford and General Motors directly commissioned this particular study, Lisa Wooten Booth, marketing and executive assistant for Anderson Economic Group, wrote over email, quote, we have previously done business with car manufacturers, auto dealers, and labor unions. However, no outside company or group was involved in the analysis you mentioned in any way. As experts in the automotive industry, we often produce studies like this internally and independently, unquote. AEG's labor clients include the Service Employees Union, but not the United Auto Workers. Ford and GM also denied any involvement in the study. Yet, even if, as Anderson Economic Group claims, Ford and General Motors did not pay for this particular study, the fact that these companies are counted among the consultancy's group's clients alongside a bevy of auto companies is cause for concern. AEG, Anderson Economic Group, may very well understand that the key to securing its long list of clients in the auto industry is to produce content that tilts in their favor. any incoming money from Ford or General Motors, whether or not it was specifically earmarked for this study, is relevant to the broader concerns about conflict of interests. Furthermore, when headlines and articles reference a quote-unquote study, this gives the impression that a scholarly or neutral body conducted an above-the-fray review, not that an entity produced a study that intersects with the interest of two of the direct clients. This is not the first time Anderson Economic Group has raised the alarm about the quote-unquote cost of strikes. On July 14th, AEG warned that, quote, potential UPS strike could be the costliest in a century, unquote. Oh my God, you know what? I didn't catch that one, man. That just, man, that's going to dig into my sleep tonight, man. These guys make me so mad. You know, everything from their shitty information, their lack of methodology, their bow ties, their baby blue button downs, their boat shoes, everything makes me crazy about them. All right, the article continues, and this is getting closer to the end. Such figures do not dominate headlines by accident. Companies have sophisticated apparatuses for public relations and media spin, and they have access to an array of consultancy organizations and think tanks which produce studies that tilt things in a particular direction. There is a reason this consultancy group is not releasing studies about the urgency of just transition from electric vehicle workers, the elimination of wage and benefit tiers, the right to strike over the closure of plants and factories, the restoration of cost of living adjustments, and improved paid time off. All things the UAW is calling for. Strikes are expensive for the employer, and that is precisely the point. CEOs and shareholders of General Motors and Stellantis are talking to each other on their earnings calls about the high cost of a potential strike. According to the calculations of the UAW, the Big Three made a combined $21 billion in profits in the first 6 months this year. If the companies are so concerned about the cost of a strike, there is certainly a deep well of profits that they could draw from to offset the cost of the auto industry to the auto industry and to the workers. Good Lord, I appreciated that. You know, I guess I had thought about it in the back of my mind, but I had never said it on this show. But I love the fact that this person said that. If these companies are so concerned about the cost of a strike, there is certainly a deep well of profits they can draw from to offset the cost to the auto industry and to workers. Love that. Thank you for saying that. And also worth mentioning, because I did go back to the Anderson Economic Group website to see their list of business clients. Their list of business clients also includes the state governments of Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, the cities of Detroit, Cincinnati, Hamtramck, and Lansing, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and also on that list, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the University of Michigan, Michigan State University, Wayne State University, and Michigan's Manufacturers Association. You know, it makes me wonder if they had their hand in this struggle with GEO 3550, because they were one of the consultants that the University of Michigan hires. But anyway, putting their name out there, bringing them out of the darkness into the light, Anderson Economic Group, anytime you see a figure that says a strike or a worker struggle or a minimum wage increase will cost the economy X billion dollars per day, or whatever the case may be, it's worth looking on who is producing that number. Because if you listen to our broadcast from last week, you'll see that, man, Anderson Economic Group doesn't even provide its methodology. It doesn't tell you how they came up with the numbers that they came up with. In place of a methodology, they link you to a book from 20 years ago written by the CEO that got 1.5 out of 5 stars. That in place of the methodology, that in place of telling you how they come up with these numbers. And the closest they came to providing a methodology for some of these reports already mentioned is to say, it's the same old methodology we've been using all along. Trust us. All right. I cover this in more detail, in more depth in our previous episode. So if you have an interest in this, check that out. But this is something that we will continue to cover as the labor movement becomes more active in the US, as we continue to see more strikes, because this is important information to have. As you can see, the CEO of Anderson Economic Group. His interests overlap with the entire auto industry, not just one or two corporations, but good Lord, it took me a couple of breaths to get through that whole list. So keep in mind who your source are when you hear those fear-mongering numbers. So at Anderson Economics Group, we will keep you up to date if they pop up in the media again, and any other organization or consultant firm like that. Up next, Brian, you got some news. The dig on OPEIU. What is going on with OPEIU union?
All right, Rick, before I go into that, just want to great work again. And there's a couple things that the old standbys of follow the money and the old standby of which side are you on, the old labor song.
Yeah.
Good work. That's great work. And the figure stuck out to me. 21 billion, would it be $1 billion in 6 months in profits?
Yeah.
That is monstrous. And
yeah.
That comes, of course, out of the hide and the blood, sweat, and tears, and probably workers have died making those profits, and the stress, and these things need to be raised. So thank you very much for that information.
Yeah,
and,
$21 billion. And you know what? That number is verifiable. You can go into the annual report for GM, for Stellantis, for Ford. You can go into their annual report to shareholders. You can go into their 10K. This information is out there.
Yeah.
So this information is verifiable, and it can be used against themselves. It's horrific to think that they've made $26 billion in this year, and they're squabbling over the healthcare benefits of workers, over the pay increases of work. Get out of here. Get out of my face with that shit. You did not make 21 billion. You stole.
That's right. That's
all
stolen labor. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up here, going to Madison, and OPEIU, Office and Professional Employees International Union, Local 39. We've been covering their contract campaign for a long time, and their press release on August 21st, 2023, which was emailed out, states that the members reject TruStage's latest offer. And this is the company that was formerly named CUNA Group, and now it's called TruStage. And in the press release of August 21, they say that workers at TruStage, formerly CUNA Mutual Group, say they will reject the employer's offer put to a vote this month. TruStage workers, represented by OPEIU Local 39, have been bargaining with TruStage since March 2022 for a successor collective bargaining agreement. Negotiations broke down at the end of 2022, leading to the union filing numerous unfair labor practice charges with the National Labor Relations Board and a 2-week strike in May and June of 2023. In July, the NLRB found merit in the first of the union's claims and ordered the company to turn over bargaining and representation information they had withheld from the union. Since the strike, negotiations have resumed, but have not progressed towards a deal viewed satisfactory by the union. August 14th marked 500 days. That's 500 days without a contract. The union anticipates that TruStage will present the quote-unquote last best final offer to the union in the coming weeks. In anticipation of an offer, OPEIU 39 held a meeting on August 17th with hundreds of union members, going through the employer's entire proposal as it stands. Following the presentation of the employer's proposal, the union polled membership on their reaction to the offer, and a majority rejected. So the struggle continues, and more information and to assist the union in all kinds of different ways, sharing social media information, etc. Listeners can go to opeiu39.org and find out more information on Facebook and OPEIU's other social media. All right, and that's it for news for today.
Right on. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone, always for listening and taking an interest in labor and union issues and worker issues around the world. We hope that this podcast proves itself valuable to you. And if so, please subscribe, please like, please share, please talk about, please bring it to your next union meeting. We do try to be a resource for you. Everything from how to organize unions to how to research corporations, stuff like that. Try to keep you up to date as far as the labor struggle in the U.S. and abroad. So thank you everyone for listening. Always, we will be back soon. Solidarity and love to all. Take care, everyone.